Hello everybody. Today we're going to be looking at the debugging style of cutting the problem in half or cutting your program in half. Basically what this solution or this debugging style is you just comment out parts of your program that you think might be broken. And by commenting those out, you can see if they're the broken part or if they're not the broken part. This is mainly used to help you figure out where infinite loops are, because anything else, it makes it kind of hard to understand where the broken part of your program is, because if it's just like a integer displaying a wrong value, this style of debugging probably wouldn't work with that, but it works really well if there is an infinite loop somewhere in your equation or in your program and you do not know where that is. So to demonstrate this style of debugging, I've created a .cpp file called cut in half. You'll have to uncomment line 12 for it. If you're not using the GitHub, then you could just go to the description of the video, copy the program there, and then just paste that into your main. It has all the errors included. So if we go to our cut in half CPP file here, you'll see that we have this pretty decently sized program with lots of loops in it. And the purpose of this function, or this CPP file, this program, is to generate all the factors for a specific number. So if I typed in like the number 50, it will give me all the numbers that you can multiply together to equal 50. So as I run the program, you'll see that it prompts us for a number. I type in 50, and there's the problem. It is now in a infinite loop, and we don't know which one of our functions are doing it. So in order to figure out which one of our functions are doing this, we're going to be using the cut in half method. And basically what this does is you comment out parts of your program that you think might be causing it. So each of these three functions right here I have with different loops in it, some while, some for loops. So they're the ones that are probably the cause of our infinite loop. So if I comment those out, then we can see here that our program runs all the way through. I can hit yes, ask for another number, I give 100, use program again, no, okay. So now we know that that infinite loop is in one of these different functions. And how cut in half works is basically you just uncomment each of those lines until you find the one with the problem. So we'll start with the reset array function. I hit run the program. Let's see here, number 50. All right, the program runs all the way through, so we know that the problem was not with the reset array. Now if I were to uncomment generate factors, 50. All right, so we're seeing now that we are now stuck in an infinite loop. So we now know that the problem with our program lies within this generate factors. So there's a problem in there. So if I were to go down to generate factors here, and I see this while loop is the one that is causing us to have that infinite loop, because we commented all those things out and the program ran fine. We uncommented reset array, everything ran fine. Then I uncommented generate factors and it doesn't run fine. So we know that this line or this function right here is the problem, and the only while loop we have in here is this while loop right here. So we know that this is the problem of our infinite loop. So as you're reading through this, temp2 is what will break us out of this loop. Once this number becomes greater than half of the number we inputted, then it'll break us out. So as we're looking through here, temp2 only gets added to when the normal temp exceeds that number. So basically this loop will just run until temp2 gets added enough to where it breaks out. And that only happens when temp1 gets added enough to make it add 1 to temp2. So we can see here that our temp1, or just temp, is getting added by 1 here, but it's not actually saving that. So if I were to put an equal sign right there, plus equals 1, our function should now actually run through. There we go. So we have now fixed that infinite loop because we didn't properly add 1 to temp to break us out of this while loop eventually. So now we can go back up here and we can uncomment our last one. Now this one may also have an infinite while loop. We don't know. So it's also a good idea to just continue with your debugging process just to see if there's going to be another broken while loop or a broken loop. Although with this one, I didn't program it to have another one, but with your own programming, if you're programming that big of a program, then you might have multiple different broken while loops or broken loops in it. So once you start down this process, it's typically a good idea just to go all the way through it. But so right here, we now see that we've inputted our number 50. It displayed 1 and 50. Multiply them together, that gives you 50. We got 2 and 25. Multiply that together, that gives you 50. 5 and 10 also, and then 10 and 5. And then it stops the program. So we now see that our program is working. And it's thanks to this debugging style of cut in half that we were able to figure out what was wrong. So I hope you were able to learn something today. The main takeaway from this video is that by commenting out certain parts of your program that either work or don't work, you can ensure that the problem with the program isn't in the commented out part. Because you commented it out, the program will just skip over the comments. And so if the program's able to run all the way through, then the problem wasn't in the commented out section. Now, if you commented stuff out and the problem still persists, then you know that the part you commented out is okay or is good, because that's not the thing that's breaking your program. That's somewhere else. So this style of debugging just really helps you figure out if there's a part of your program that's just broken. It doesn't actually help you with like figuring out if a variable is correct or not, where the variable getting added to or taken away from is gone. As you've noticed, when I was using this style of debugging and we figured out the problem was in generate factors, I couldn't actually tell from the debugging style that this part right here was the problem, because that's not what this one does. This just helps you narrow in on where the problem is. It doesn't actually show you exactly where the problem is. So I hope that this video has helped you in some way, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.